Hello, everyone, and welcome to Thrills and Chills, Rachel Howzell Hall. I'm Allison Carvalho, the events manager for Barbara's Bookstores, and we are incredibly excited to be bringing you this virtual event. We are a family-owned and operated bookstore. We've been around since 1963, and we pride ourselves on creating community spaces within our stores as well as out of them, like these virtual events. Before we begin our discussion, I want to give you a quick tour of Crowdcast for those of you who haven't used it before. First, I'd like to start by saying we are still relatively new to virtual events. We've been doing them since June, but we're still kind of figuring out the tech side of things as well. So please bear with us if we're having any technical difficulties. We're going to try to get things back up and running as quickly as we possibly can. Just make sure to hop back on the link if for some reason anything goes wrong. Please make sure to chat with fellow book lovers in the chat on the side. It's going to be there so that you can ask questions. I'll be posting things about other events and book recommendations and stuff like that throughout the chat. If you happen to have a question and you want to ask it to our amazing author today, you can put it in the Ask a Question function that's at the bottom of the screen. So all you have to do is just click on that, and then you can type in your question there. Also, if you want to see someone else's question get asked, you can upvote that question, and that question can kind of get moved up in the queue. If you're experiencing any lag or freezing throughout the event, click on the little gear icon and then switch your HD setting to 360. That tends to help with any lag that you might experience. Let me see. Oh yeah. Ooh, actually, a very important thing is we're going to have a link available at the bottom of the screen for the book today. So if you would like to pick up that book, you're going to click on the green button that will be appearing on your screen shortly. And then you can also get an extra 10% off. And all you have to do is you write event at checkout, and you'll be able to get this copy of this incredible book with an extra 10% off discount. Lastly, please make sure that you are being as kind and wonderful to your fellow book lovers in the chat. We want to keep this a really wonderful open space for conversation. So please make sure to be respectful as you are hanging out with us today. All right, I think that's everything. Let's go ahead and bring our incredible author to the screen. She is the author of the acclaimed Lou Norton series, the standalone thriller They All Fall Down, and the co-author of The Good Sister with James Patterson, which appeared in the New York Times best-selling anthology, The Family Lawyer. She currently serves on the board of directors for the Mystery Writers of America and is a member of Sisters in Crime, and has participated as a mentor in the Association of Writers and Writing Programs Writer to Writer program. I am very excited to bring to the screen Rachel Howzell Hall.
Hi, thank you for inviting me.
Of course, thank you so much.
I'm happy to be here.
Yay! Oh, I'm so excited to talk about your book. It's gonna be so good.
Yes.
So let's go ahead. Let's just dive right in. So the first thing I wanted to talk to you about is your writing journey. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got into writing and what your writing journey has been like?
It's been a very long, I'm 50, and it started probably when I was 5. I was that kid who loved writing in journals, writing on blank spaces. I just liked writing. I liked recording what I saw and how I felt when I saw these things, witnessed these things. I disappeared into these worlds. I loved genre books, especially like Stephen King and Jackie Collins and Sidney Sheldon and all these places. And, you know, growing up, I did read probably things that I shouldn't have been reading, like who did not read V.C. Andrews when they were like 9, right? Flowers in the Attic, that's like every girl. So I was that kid, always in a book. And while I wanted to be a writer, I didn't know what that meant. I was around Black poetry. You know, I grew up reading Gwendolyn Brooks and Langston Hughes and those types of things, but that never really made me think that I too could be a writer. And I still went to school. I went to college for English American Literature major, as a major. And I still really didn't see, especially genre writing by African Americans. And, you know, I still wrote, but it was for me and it was for class, a random article for school newspaper here and there, that type of thing, but never a real thing. You know, I always dreamed of, I'm going to write for Essence magazine, but it wasn't like a thing. That's just what we do. It wasn't until I started working at Penn Center USA West, which is a chapter of Penn American Center, that I saw working Black writers like B.B. Moore Campbell and Gary Phillips and Jervy Turvalon. And it's like, oh, so I can be this thing. I can write these books. I can share my experience. And so I started writing my first book, which was The Quiet Storm. And it was published on the first anniversary of 9/11, which, what a great day for publishing a story about a family in Los Angeles, right? Yeah. So, yeah, it was hard to gain some traction for that. In addition to, you know, this was 2002. And so a lot of Black literature that was being published was not like what I wrote. You know, it was a very East Coast, gritty snow and, you know, high-rise tenement type of thing. And, you know, Los Angeles, it's a different kind of feel out here. And publishing at that time only had one vision of what Black writing was. And I didn't fit into it. So, you know, I didn't get another deal, but I kept writing and I kept writing. And I lived some life in those 30s. Oh my God, I had my first child, I had cancer diagnosis, but I kept writing. Yeah, while I was pregnant. But I kept writing. And after surviving that, though, it was like, well, I've done the scariest thing, which is fight a disease that I had no control over while being pregnant twice, right? What do I want to do before leaving this earth? And you know, I always say this, one of those things was buying a Benz, because I've always wanted one. And it's like, I planned to buy one when I was 50, but here I was 36 years old doing this cancer thing again. So I'm gonna get my Benz now. So I got that. And then I said, I wanted to write a story that has Walter Mosley's Devil in a Blue Dress meets Terry McMillan's Waiting to Excel. I want to see who she would be. And so I created Lou Norton, who was an LAPD homicide detective, and that was Land of Shadows. And 4 books later, Lou had this whole life, and I kept writing. I got another book deal for an homage to Agatha Christie's They All Fall, and then There Were None, and that book was They All Fall Down. And then this book, which is And Now She's Gone, and a whole bunch of other things, James Patterson thing. And I'm still writing, because for me, writing has always been therapy. Writing has always been the way that I express my fears, my anxiety, what makes me angry, what makes the people around me angry. And I absolutely love it. My journey is still going, because I'm still learning, and I'm still scared every time I start a new project, no matter if it's, you know, 10,000 words, a blog post, or a 90,000 word project. It's all, you know, terrifying in the very beginning.
That's so incredibly inspiring. And I think there's something to be said for kind of the fact that, like, you can you can write for a very long time, but that doesn't mean that you stop being scared, or you stop having that kind of like reticence about whether or not your voice deserves to be heard.
Yeah.
And like,
what is my voice? I you know, with on, I think I finally found it. But even then, it's like, well, is it going to work today? You know, I get up every morning at 5 o'clock to write. And every morning at 5 o'clock, it's like, okay, I'm going to do it again. I got it. I got this. What helps me a lot, I write for my day job. And I write, I ghostwrite for the executive team. I write donor reports and proposals and all kind of random things, right? And when you do that for a living, you can't say, I don't feel like writing today. I'm going to take the day off. The muse don't care. I need to write this letter, and in the voice of the CEO of the medical center. And so that means that I have a writing muscle where I have to fake the funk until I'm feeling it. And that comes in handy, especially at 5 o'clock in the morning when you're like, I don't know if I can do this.
Oh, I can only, I'm not a morning writer. My brain is so foggy in the morning. And so I very much respect the ability to like,
you write it evening. You write
I'm an evening.
Yeah, no, by that time I'm foggy and I'm in bed like 9:15 every night. I put Golden Girls on. I put my diffuser on with my essential oils.
Oh
my
yeah.
Strip, and I'm gone.
You're like, I'm out.
I'm out. Bye. See y'all later.
Oh man, that sounds. I miss relaxing evenings. There was a time I had those.
Yeah.
And then I decided I wanted to write, and I was like, nah, guess not.
Yeah, because even on weekends, it's like I need to be up because your brain starts going through all these things. It's like, I'm laying here. I should be up writing. So I get up, and my dog is old, so she has to go pee. So it's like, well, you know, I'm up now. So, but I absolutely love writing, you know, and that's helpful because sometimes it is hard and sometimes it is exhausting, but I love it. I really, really do.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And also, you gotta, if you're gonna do the things, you're gonna do to write, you gotta love it, or else you're not doing it.
When anyone ever says something like that, like I always get emotional. Like watching the Lakers win last night, and there was a Nike commercial or something that said, "If you want to be good at it, you have to enjoy it," or something like that. And I'm like, "Amen, amen." You have to love it because you're not getting paid, at least for writing. You're not getting a lot of money, you know.
Yeah. For sure.
Yes, they do. But as regular kind of journey women, we don't get paid like that. You know, we're hoping to change, but even the bump and increase from publishing paying what they should, it's still not enough for a family to survive. So day jobs are great in that sense.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I think most people I know have day jobs, and it's like that's just what you have to do right now.
Yeah.
And hopefully one day that'll change, but for the moment, that's where we're at.
That's where we are. But you know, at the same time, it frees you to be as creative as you want because you don't have to rely on this writing thing to eat. And there's nothing that kills creativity than fear of not being able to sustain your family. So,
ain't that the some truth?
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about this amazing, beautiful book. Tell me about the inspiration, like kind of where this character came from and kind of your idea for the book. And also tell us a little bit about like the book.
Yes. So here's the summary. The book is about a new private investigator, Grayson Sykes, who gets her very first case. She had a smaller case, and that was to find a missing Chihuahua named Cheeto. But now she's getting a people case. And her client is Dr. Ian O'Donnell, and he's looking for his girlfriend, Isabel Lincoln, who not only has disappeared, but she has disappeared with his beloved Labradoodle, Kenny G. So Gray, it seems like, you know, she thinks it's pretty straightforward. It's a little scary for her because this is her first case. She kind of messes up with not being prepared with her tools. Her pen doesn't work. Her phone dies, you know, things that happen to us all. And it seems like a straightforward case. Get proof of life that, you know, Isabel's okay. Bring the dog back. And then that's it. But at the end of the first day of her investigating this case, she gets a text message from the missing woman asking for her to please let me be missing. So this story, you know, follows Gray as she navigates a world in which she can't stand her client, but her client's paying her. At the same time, she's supposed to be finding this woman who may be hiding from, you know, a violent partner. So initially it sounds like a cozy in some ways with, you know, an amateur PI and the missing dog, but it's not. it's a little deeper than that. It's an onion of a story.
And it very much is definitely an onion.
Yes, yes. And you know, I was inspired. This is a part of this book was the book that I tried to write after my very first one back in 2002, 2003. And that's the story of a woman who disappears. But I didn't know how to write it. You know, I was a baby writer, and, you know, I didn't know what my voice was. And so it was rejected. But I kept it because writers, we have to keep all of our stuff. You have to keep it. You don't know, you know, when it's going to come in handy. And this came in handy because after writing the Lou stories and after writing They All Fall Down, I had the muscle to go back to the story and fit it into a PI structure, and while still keeping it domestic suspense. And then that's what happened. And I love it. I love this story, and I love Grayson, and even Isabel Lincoln. I love her too.
So was Grayson at all kind of part of that first story in any way, or was it more that Isabel was part of that first story? And where did Grayson kind of come from as a character?
Natalie Dixon was the character in the story.
Okay.
Yeah, she was who I wanted to follow. And Grayson and Isabel came later. Yeah. I wanted
hard to talk about it without spoilers. Yeah. I know.
Yeah. Well, Gray knew this woman named Natalie Dixon, who was in a violent relationship, and that's what that is what is tinging her work life right now. I mean, we all have our biases, and we all have our prejudices, and we shy away from things that have hurt us in the past, and our interactions are colored by what we know. And that's Grayson. I mean, she goes into this case with some of her own baggage. And so sometimes she can't see clearly, and her boss, Nick, helps her through that. Yeah.
Yes. She's such a fun character. And she's very, she's incredibly relatable. Like her first day, I'm like, oh girl, same. I know this life. I'm like, I can't find a pen. All my technology is failing around me. Like, how do I function?
That was so important to me. I wanted her to not be this superwoman who knows it all and is flawless. And it's like, we've all gone to interviews or something important where we've spilled coffee, or we have lipstick on a collar, or, you know, we have a poppy seed caught in our teeth. And even though, like right now, I feel I did that Aztec mask last night or 2 nights ago. And so, you know, the Aztec clay mask, it brings out all the impurities. And after I did, I'm like, why did I do that? Because now I feel like I have a giant zit right here. And even though you probably can't see it, it's here. It's living in my brain. And so,
it's there.
Yeah. And if you can't harness that, you're not your 100%, because you're thinking of your imperfections. And I wanted Gray to be thinking of her imperfections as she's especially meeting with this very important white man looking for his Black girlfriend. And I wanted her to be relatable like that, you know, eating a donut when you're wearing white. You know, that's just, it's like, really?
Choices.
Yeah, wearing linen. It's like, oh, we all love linen, but sometimes toward the end of the day, we are not looking our best. And so, you know, I really wanted the readers, especially women, to say, I know who she is, because I am that woman. And even with the more serious things, I wanted women to say, I know her, because either I am her, or my mother's her, or my best friend is her. And so, yeah, she's complex, but I think most of us are.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And that's also the beauty of characters is like when they are complex, you can find the things that you can relate to, and even the things that you don't relate to. It's like, but you still know that there are human beings that exist that are grappling with those things, even if you don't directly relate to them. And so it's like, it's so wonderful just to see like a proud Black woman who's just doing her damn job.
Yeah. Keeping her head above water, making a wave when she can.
Exactly. She is just here. She is doing her job.
Yeah. And eating food. I really wanted that to be a part of her journey too, because in addition to just eating great food in Chicago, we both live in great eating towns, and it's a part of our life. But
food is so important here.
It's important. And she also relates it to, you know, equating love with food. You know, for our culture especially, someone loves you, they give you something to eat. Yeah. But at the same time, just because you're being fed doesn't mean that's the right food you should eat. She thinks about, as you may remember, some things that one of her foster mothers would prepare for her, and she'd get sick to her stomach. But it was good food, but she got the scoots, you know, it's like, so I wanted to bring food in there as not all food is good for you. And for Gray, she knows that firsthand.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk a little bit, there's definitely some like really interesting representations of microaggressions and like toxic masculinity. Yeah. And it's interesting because kind of like you talked about before, how like, especially in like suspense, thriller, and mystery genre, like it tends to be mostly a lot of white people that are like dealing with a murder or some kind of mystery. And because of that, it's like the nuances of being a person of color living within those stories, they don't exist. Like there aren't really that many stories with people of color playing an active role within those kind of stories. So I'm curious about like your kind of thoughts, because you've obviously, as you talked about before, been doing this for a minute. Yeah. And so you've been able to kind of watch that transition. What has it been like to kind of see, like, kind of living through seeing genre change and evolve in like a somewhat short amount of time? Because like 20 years ago, you really wouldn't find a main character like Gray.
No. There were very few boxes that Black writers could occupy, and you either had to write a slave narrative, a civil rights narrative, or the perfect, we're really, really rich and have 12 Bentleys in the 8-car garage, Black people rich. There were that was it. And as time has gone, and like you said, in a relatively short amount of time, it's about almost 20 years, which is, short in some ways. There is more room for that. I'm hoping that continues. I'm hoping that we get to see the trajectory of Black life, just Black people being happy, Black people solving murders, Black people starring in stories in their own neighborhoods. I mean, that was a frustrating thing, like reading great stories, great mysteries and crime stories, but we were never the cops to help our neighborhoods. We were never the ones telling our stories about our neighborhoods. And now more and more we're seeing that. Because yes, there are only 12 stories to tell. Basically, that's the thing. There are only 12 stories. But the way we tell them and what our experience is totally different in some ways. Just like for men and women. A woman's story is different. V.I. Warshawski is totally different from a Harry Bosch. They are still solving a crime, but we're coming from it from a different way. And for Gray, she's coming in a way that Black women are usually looked over, ignored. And her client is still kind of doing that, dismissing her, saying, I don't know what that neighborhood is. Being an asshole in that way.
The thing he said post-racial, I was like,
you heard it. Oh my God, what is post-racial? She's not going to check that box. I've heard those things. And it's like, well, what? The worst thing you can say to me is, I don't see color. What's wrong with me being colored? I don't, So I want to bring all that conversation and help white people learn not to say those things. You know, don't say that. Don't say that. But even her coworker Jen, who, you know, this blonde who thinks she knows everything. We all have a Jen in our lives who think they know everything, and here you are. You actually do know everything because you've gone through all kinds of things that she has no clue about. So yeah, I wanted to take, you know, what we see every day, take those spaces that people say that we only get to occupy and just knock down all those walls because they don't exist anymore. They never did. We were always more than slaves, rich people and civil rights advocates. We just live like right now. We're just living. So yeah, I try to put, I want my stories to be more than just entertaining. I want them to say a lot about what we're experiencing right now.
Yeah, which I think is I think that's incredibly important for genre, like specific genre writing, because I think a lot of times people think like, oh, literary is where you like delve into the like big picture, emotional, philosophical, all of that stuff. But the thing is, you can do all of that in genre writing. You can do all of that, and you get to, even to a certain extent, you get to do it with a lot more freedom and a lot more ability to like offer like clear analogy, like plain, right in your face analogy.
I mean, that's why there's so many, you know, Law and Order SVUs and CSIs and all this, because people, I mean, even Jesus spoke in parables, right? People want, yes, I want to be entertained, but I want something also that kind of stays with me, that resonates with me, that speaks to me. And, you know, genre writing does that. I remember when Stephen King won the National Book Awards a while ago, and I think it was Norman Mailer who just like went off because like, he's genre, he writes horror. Well, how is this? It's like, well, he writes to a lot of people, and he's accessible, and he tells a lot of great stories with, I mean, they're every people, and we're all kind of scared of clowns in sewers with eyes like dimes, you know. That speaks to a lot of people. It speaks to me still. I still remember that. So I love genre, and I think it's only going to get better when we allow more people to tell their stories.
100%. 100%. Yeah. So I want to kind of pull it back to the book, because there's one thing about it that I thought was just such a fascinating thing I hadn't really thought about before, which was kind of the moral quandary that you kind of have like put poor Gray in. Like, poor thing is just stuck to this client who is just the worst. And like reminds her of terrible things from her past, and is giving her kind of these like flashbacks to
emotional flashbacks.
Exactly, to like terrible people that she has been around. And then and the thing is, it's kind of, she's stuck about like, who do you serve? Who is like, do you serve the person who is paying you and like you are obligated to from an exchange of goods and services place, or this person that you know is like suffering, and reconnecting them is not good, is not okay. And so I was curious about, and like, obviously that is a whole thing we could dig into, but the thing that kind of stuck out for me, I wondered about, like, from a PI's perspective, what that quandary is like, because this can't be the first time that has happened. So like, what kind of research kind of went into it, and like, how did you kind of figure out and navigate that during your research and putting it in the book?
Yes. So of course I read like thousands of Google articles on how to be a PI, but then I turned to David Corbett, who is a writer himself, but he, and a teacher, but he was also a private investigator in his prior life. And so I talked to him about a lot of these types of issues of what do you do? What do you do? And a lot of times what will happen, a PI will do his job, her job, while also providing help to that person. So there are investigators who will say, yes, I found her, but then find resources for that woman who's trying to flee, for her to fully flee. There's a book called Playing Dead by Elizabeth Greenwood, who writes about her experience of trying to disappear. And she talks to a bunch of PIs who are in the business of helping people disappear. And that comes up. Like, what if this woman needs to go and your client wants to find them? They will actually charge the client a lot more money. Like I say in the book, charge them a lot more money, which will help finance this woman's escape or the help that she needs to start a new life. So they kind of, they do things like that. And that was great to hear. But going back to, the moral quandary of doing things for people who may not be good. I mean, that's where we are right now, right? It's like, do you believe Black Lives Matter or don't you? Because if you don't, then I need to take my money somewhere else. Or do you take your money somewhere else? I mean, I've worked for organizations, I'm in fundraising. And so sometimes all money's not good money. And there was a case where Philip Morris was throwing money at the medical center where I was. And, Philip Morris is the reason why a lot of people have lung cancer, because of cigarettes. Do you take Philip Morris's money to advance research or don't you? We didn't. It's like, you really are the bad guys. We can't take your money. But there are some groups that will take Philip Morris money because we'll cleanse it. We'll put it toward a good use. So I think we're all faced with what we'll do for a living and what we won't do. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, and like, that's the thing. It still comes back to that same concept of like, you can deal with complicated issues within genre. Yeah. Like this is such an interesting thing to talk about in a genre book. Yeah. And I just think it's so good.
Yeah. I'm glad we're saying this because I think literature should be accessible to people. What's the point if no one understands it? I mean, yes, there's art, and it's like, I don't.
Right. And there are people who do, sure. They're great. Yeah, that's
sure.
But like, I don't have the capacity.
Yeah. It's like, there's something to elegant language and all that. I totally believe in that. I think writing's not for everyone. And I think it's a craft that takes years and years and years, but I'm not going to, say only so-and-so can read this. And I didn't write this for you. I wrote this for, I want my stories to resonate with as broad an audience as possible.
Heck yeah, for sure. So I want to talk a little bit about, there was one thing that I kind of also thought was really interesting. Was the fact that like I felt like Gray kind of was code switching throughout the book, and it was interesting because it wasn't like kind of the normal kind of concept of code switching, because like when we think of code switching, it's kind of this idea of being able to kind of chameleon yourself into whatever is going to work for the audience you're in front of in the moment. But for her, it was even kind of heightened beyond that because of the circumstances that led her to be a PI and the circumstances that kind of led her on the path that she was on. I was curious, was that something that you had kind of thought about when you were like actively thinking about kind of that concept and talking about code switching a little bit?
Oh, definitely. Because especially as women, we do that all the time. I mean, what's one of the, when we actually left the house all the time, was one of the first things you do when you get home. You rip your bra off and you're just free. And because our bodies have always been regulated. You know, that shirts to, you know, you're showing your midriff, you're showing your bra straps, you're doing this, you're doing that. And we've always had to have, you know, our work in church selves and who we are. And I wanted that for Gray, but I also wanted her to be the PI Gray, not, you know, who she was before she became a PI. And that means sometimes not enjoying your cocktail the way you used to, or keeping your mouth shut when you actually do know the answer, or pretending that you've never been to this place, but you have. You know, I wanted her to not be comfortable, because for some women, they can't be too comfortable, because when you let your guard down, the worst things happen. And Gray's very much aware of bad things happening when she is too comfortable. So I was very much into her changing who she was to be who she needs to be. And that's why in some ways this cover captures it perfect. It's if you can't see it, it's like a wallpaper texture, and it's peeling away and ripping away. And you know, it with a woman's face being covered. And you know, when we first were talking about cover concepts, you know, it was kind of hard to initially imagine what this would be. But then when the designer hit it, it's like, that's it, because we're peeling away identity and papering over what we don't want other people to see. And we do that all the time, maybe not to the extent that Gray and Isabel Lincoln do, but you know, we do that to make people feel guilty, to feel loved, to earn love, to beg for love. We hide parts of ourselves that, you know, may stick out and may stink. But that's, you know, that is actually the human condition. And I love writing about it, because everybody, in some ways, you have to do it.
Exactly. Oh, we're getting deep. We're getting deep in this talk today.
In genre. Imagine.
I was like, believe it or not, we are getting deep in this. Come on now.
I love it.
So I am gonna ask about some book recommendations you have, but one other thing I'm wondering about is, what are some of your favorite, just like general favorite mystery writers, or like books that have inspired you on your writing journey?
Besides the ones that I named, like of course the Stephen King and the Jackie Collins, all those genre books that I grew up reading, I like a lot of creative nonfiction, which is funny, because creative nonfiction, you write it as though it's a story, like it's a fiction story, but it actually happened, which means that I love John Krakauer's book, who wrote Into Thin Air and Into the Wild. Anything he writes, I read. Eric Larson, who wrote Devil in the White City, as you know.
I love Devil in the White City.
And you know, his Garden in the Garden of the Beast, and the one that just came out now that I just keep forgetting. Again, true stories that are written as though they're fiction. I mean, I read Thunderstruck by Eric Larson, and it's about electricity, and it was one of the most fascinating things. It was like, tell me more about this Tesla. What? But he writes it so that, you know, and so I want to write things that, you know, fictional stories that feel like they're actually me looking at a real person over there who is doing this thing. So those books inspire me. I love writers who love the places they write about. Attica Locke writes East Texas, like, and she does love it, but I can tell that she loves that place, just how she writes it. Yeah, so I would say those. But you know, I'm inspired by so many things. Like I say, I get emotional looking at Nike commercials. So I find, after becoming a mom, I noticed, like, it was American Idol, and a Coke commercial came on, and I just started bawling because it was just the most beautiful thing. So, you know, as I get older And as I find myself in love with writing, you know, when people are good at it and top of their game and they're talking about how much they love it, it resonates with me because it's like, I love this too. I really do. And I love books that are written with love. You can tell what those books are. It's not just, I'm writing a story about a detective and they find a body and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no. Yeah, okay, this could be anybody's story. But, you know, there are some writers who's like, no, that's an Attica Locke story. No, that's a Walter Oakley story. You feel it in your bones that, you know, they poured themselves into the story, not because they want to get paid, but because there's something bubbling in them that has to get out. And this is how it does. Yeah.
Heck yeah. So actually, you kind of led me into a question I was wondering about. So you live in LA and you set the book in LA. And I know obviously it's that kind of thing where you kind of end up loving the city that you're in. But what was it about this story that kind of lent itself to being in LA? And like, what is it about LA that works here?
Yeah. So I am a native. I love the city. You know, we have problems, but so do every, you know, big city. And for those of us who grew up here, it feels like a small town. So, you know, people kind of everywhere. But then you watch people who move here and they put on this, what LA is. And it's like, LA is not about that. It's not the clothes. It's not the hair. It's not, you know, this kind of pretentious thing. We're all kind of just chilling and happy and just want to be left alone until we don't. And so this story is a story about identity and people coming here and rushing here to become something they think what the city is. And that's what the story is about, you taking on a persona to fit your own narrative. And LA is great. It's a great disappearing town. And I say this like in the first chapter or so, that everybody and no one knows you in the city. And you're in your car and you're like, hey, to you in the other car, but then you're gone. You're on the next block. You're in the next city and you're anonymous again. And that works perfectly for a mystery, for a crime story where, you know, you want people to disappear.
Disappearing is the thing.
Yeah. I mean, and of course, you know, there are thousands of places to eat, which, you know, is a very, and then the weather, you're affected by, you know, a few weeks ago, we couldn't even go outside because we had like 80 fires going around, you know.
Yeah,
around
I thought that was really beautiful, specifically kind of talking about the sky being kind of like a murder, like a killer sky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that really struck me because I was like, yeah, because like literally the sky turns like bright orange.
Yeah, bright orange with big ass flakes of burning trees coming down on you. But, you know, you take a picture on Instagram and it's the most beautiful thing, but it's killing us because it's, you know, it's cancer causing. But that's LA, you know, it's like, oh, this is awesome. All these beautiful cars, but the fumes are killing us, you know? So it's a weird place and I love it. I absolutely love it. And, you know, of course I love the diversity and it's a great people watching town. And for those of us who are really interested in character and wanting to capture, you know, unique people on page, it's an incredible place to do that.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense to me, especially kind of because people from all over move to LA. So it's not just like living in Chicago, generally speaking, it is Midwestern human beings that are like moving to Chicago, you know, like there's lots of people from all over who move here, but like baseline, it's a lot. We got lots of people from St. Louis. We have a lot of people from like Iowa, you know? And so it's interesting to kind of think about the fact that like, because of the industries inherent in LA, people will literally move from anywhere.
Yeah. From anywhere and because it's all here. It's like, it's like a mall. We don't have to leave it for anything. It's everything. You want food, clothes, all of it. And so every type of person moves here and that's our superpower. And sometimes it's exhausting because it's like, we're giving this city a bad name and it's actually not like that. At least, you know, places where, you know, the natives live, those places that you don't see And that's why I also write the stories that I do, because I want the LA that I know and that I grew up in and where I live now to be in these stories. And they're not Santa Monica or Beverly Hills or, you know, Hollywood. They're just South Los Angeles, where there are great soul food places and chicken joints and, you know, guys doing donuts in the middle of Crenshaw Boulevard because it's Sunday. You know, I wanted that.
Like real life, down to earth stuff that exists. Yeah. Like it isn't just
for
that
you,
1% vibe.
Not Chicago that I would come to see if I'm coming to Chicago, you know?
Right. Oh, yeah. Chicago has that same exact problem.
Yeah.
100%.
It's like, no, not that Chicago.
Because I think people like to think, especially with cities, they like to think of them in extremes. Like Chicago's known for being kind of like a dangerous, scary place to live. And like, it's not a scary, dangerous place to live. There are scary, dangerous places.
Yes.
That exist. But those places exist everywhere. There's scary, dangerous places in every single major city.
Right. So on HLN, there's this show called Murder in the Heartland. And I'm watching like all these vicious murders in Iowa and and it's like, oh, I'd never live there. Cause it's like, I don't know what it is to leave my door unlocked. I don't, what? I mean, Truman Capote got famous. Well, he was already famous, but his in Cold Blood, where there's this farmhouse in the middle of nowhere in Kansas, and this whole family gets murdered. It's everywhere. So I might as well have great restaurants, if something's going to happen.
The truth of that statement is just so true. Like if there's going to be danger everywhere, at least I could have good food.
Right.
Like
I don't have every freaking night.
Oh God. Yeah. My young suburban heart is feeling called out, but in a great way. Like I've lived in in Chicago for about 15 years now, and let me tell you, the food is definitely better out here than like out in a little tiny suburb. It's like we don't need that in our lives. Yeah. So to take things in a slightly different direction. So you had mentioned that or I had mentioned about you, that you are on the board of directors for the Mystery Writers of America, as well as a member of Sisters in Crime. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to talk just a little bit about those organizations and kind of like what those kind of organizations are offering up for, especially for people of color, but also just for writers, what is kind of the landscape of those organizations, kind of as we've been talking about with kind of this shift and push into diversity.
Right. No, they recognize that there is a lack of diversity in especially crime mystery, and they're making inroads into changing that from inviting people of color onto their boards of directors, creating programs, mentorship programs to team more experienced writers with baby writers, contests for emerging voices. I recently sat on Sisters in Crime's an award to give scholarships to writers of color in the genre. When there are panels, when there are conventions and conferences, inviting us, to sit on some of these panels, and panels that aren't just telling me about diversity, but actually say, oh, you have this specialty, you're on this panel. So they're being not only diverse, they're making attempts to be inclusive, bringing everyone into the table, and making sure we all have voices. They're helping to influence publishing by amplifying voices like mine. It's remarkable. I remember going to my first BoucherCon, and that's the big mystery conference that would have been happening this weekend, actually. And that was 2014. And other than me and Gary Phillips and this other random Black person, we were the only, those were the only faces I saw that looked like mine. And I remember going to the hotel room and crying because it was just exhausting being there and being the only in such a big, big space. And that's changed. That's changed with, you know, more publishers publishing people in Chicago. Like there's Tracy Clark and Alexia Gordon, who both write incredible series and, you know, who are helping bring other writers on board and being that face that I needed back in 1996 to say, hey, we can do this. This genre is important. We're a part of a larger community. So they're Mystery Writers of America and Sisters in Crime. They're both committed to making sure that writers of color especially have a place at the table, and also not just at the table, but helping to provide resources to level the playing field. Because just because we're in a room doesn't mean that we have the tools that we should have had, you know, to get there. So.
Exactly. Yeah. That's really wonderful, because I think that's so important that, especially in publishing, because it's kind of been this giant monolith for a very long time. And so it's cool to see that organizations are not just kind of giving lip service, but that they are trying to like take like the active steps that are helping other writers and helping genre writers to kind of push forward. I think that's just really, really cool.
And I'm hoping also that, you know, a lot of Black women especially have been tapped to lead some of these large imprints like Simon & Schuster. And I'm hoping that these women, these publishers, see beyond just literary fiction as a place for great stories. I hope they, in their vision, look to sci-fi and romance and mystery crime as, you know, a place to tap for great talent, because we're telling some important stories, especially now as we're dealing with, you know, police brutality and justice and injustice. That's our bailiwick in crime and mystery fiction. That's what we do. So here's to, you know,
crossing fingers.
Leadership. There's value there.
Yeah, I recently got the chance to interview Talia Hibbert, and like, she is so lovely, and like her stories talk about Black joy, which is also, I think, so important.
I think
and so like it's so important. Like, yes, of course, like talking about the hard stuff is very important, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think it's also important to have stories where Black people just get to like live their lives and have fun.
It's just fun because, you know, that's why I love Black Twitter so much, because this is a great thing, but we've been able to survive because we've been able to look at something and laugh our asses off at it and then get to work. That's what we do. I mean, we have weddings and joyful things and graduations and, you know, dominoes and just hanging out, and all of it should be reflected, because that's they get to, you know, they get to have everything, and I want us to have
everything. We should get to have everything too.
Yeah.
Like everyone should get to have everything. And that can include some like really fun, gritty crime. And that can include some like really silly, fun rom-com vibes.
Yes, exactly. Because we do have cute meets, you know, we have cute meets all the time.
These are things. We can have them.
Yes, make it so.
So let's talk a little bit about some books that you recommend. So please tell us some really wonderful, amazing thrillers that you think we should be reading.
I think you should be reading Jess Lowry. This is her last one. Jess is a Minnesota writer, and she writes, I would say she writes creepy fiction that feels like true crime, because she starts from true crime stories and builds these worlds. And in this story, it's a story about 1980s Minnesota. And even though I'm not from Minnesota, I was a teenager in 1980s, and a boy disappears. And so the town kind of freaked out over that. So there's Jess Lowry. Her next book is coming out in January called Bloodline. which you could pre-order through Barbara's. And it's kind of like, without the supernatural element, it's like Rosemary's Baby, but in Minnesota. So she does this kind of creepy small town vibe. Tori Eldridge, the Ninja's Blade. Tori is an Asian American writer who writes these stories of ninja. She's a real life ninja who goes and helps women in despair. So Tori, this book just came out in September. This is the second in her series, in her Lily Wong series, The Ninja's Blade. And finally, if you haven't read it yet, Blacktop Wasteland, Sean Cosby. It is an incredible crime story of a guy named Bug who wants to get out of the gang, the game, GAME, but he's called back for one last heist, and it reads fast and it's incredible. And it's a part of the world where I don't know much about. I think it's South Carolina or South Carolina. I want to say South Carolina. And you don't get many Black crime stories in that part of the country. So Blacktop Wasteland.
Yes. Those are all incredible recommendations. So I've stuck all of those links inside of the chat so people can click on those and I'll be able to take them directly to our store, where you can also get 10% off by using the code EVENT at checkout. I have one last question.
Don't forget your Chicago writers. Like I said, Tracy Clark and Alexia Gordon. They're right there. Yes. They write stuff that you will pass and see and hear. So yes, definitely.
No, do not forget our locals. They're so important. We love them so much. So I have one last question for you, and it looks like we're not having anyone ask any questions, but there's still time. I'm going to ask one more, and if you want to pop a question and ask a question, please do. But otherwise, we are reaching the end of our chat today. So my last question is kind of, how's writing in the quarantine been going?
It's been weird. It's been weird. Like I mentioned earlier that I write for my day job, but what has been difficult is all this time before COVID-19, I've been able to balance my day job writing and keep it separate from my home writing. But writing at home, it's all together, and it was all on my dining room table. And the biggest urgency was, of course, writing for my day job and writing crisis communications and letters to patients and, what we're doing, what we need you to do, what you should be doing. That took precedence over, my imaginary worlds that I'm building. And so that meant I didn't have a lot of gas in the tank for some of my novel writing. And that was difficult. It was also difficult not having my commute. I would write in my head and on my little notepad and sticky notes from home to work, or from work to take my daughter to soccer. And that was gone. And so a lot of times I would get to my desk and I'm like, I don't know what to write, because I didn't get to figure that out on that.
Well, and like the LA commute is like a whole different monster. Like we have some rough commutes in Chicago. Yeah. We have some like real intense stop and go situation, but I know it is nothing like LA.
No, it's an art form in LA, which means you have a lot of time to listen to your podcast, write
it's
novel.
5 o'clock.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And so I missed that. And so that was difficult, not having that liminal space to think things out. It was home. And so a lot of it, I had to, have a thing where, okay, let me clean off this dining room table and clear it off work stuff. And now it's my stuff. And so a lot of it was just visual, me moving and closing things down to start another part of my life. So that's been difficult. And, trying to be a mom to a 16-year-old in a moment of time that's, pandemic and race and all these big ideas that I didn't have to think about when I was 16. So, and making sure she gets the love and attention that she needs when I'm, thinking about words. So it's been interesting. It's been interesting. I we get to, you know, have some semblance of what we did last year this time. Little did we know. Little did we know. But, you know,
yeah, I'm really crossing my fingers for 2021.
Yeah.
Really crossing my fingers for it to be better.
Because of it, I got to meet you and, you know, the people who are here tonight and who come to your store. And I may have not been able to do that. So yay for the
there's definitely some silver linings for sure.
Yeah.
No, definitely. This has been so incredibly lovely. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you for inviting me. I had a great time. You had wonderful questions. I loved them.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I hope we stay in touch. We should keep chatting because this has been great.
Good. We will.
Yeah, for sure. Alrighty, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to shut this thing down. Thank you all so much for attending our event today. Please make sure to push the little green button at the bottom of your screen so that you can pick up a copy of And Now She's Gone, this incredible, beautiful book. Please, please, please pick it up. It is so good. You're going to love it, I promise. And also make sure to use that 10% off discount by hitting the event code at checkout. We hope to see you again for one of our other amazing virtual events. This month we are featuring Thrills and Chills. So it's thrillers and horror books and stuff like that. Our next one coming up is on October 15th and features New York Times bestselling author Kenneth C. Davis, featuring his book Strongman, The Rise of Five Dictators and the Fall of Democracy. It is a nonfiction thriller, to say the least, and it is going to definitely give me some chills, but I'm very excited about that event. I think it's going to be great. And then also don't forget to check out our inclusive book club Culture Exposure, where we discuss books written by authors representing a wide variety of marginalized communities. This month, it's going to be October 28th. At 6 p.m. and it features 6 p.m. Central Time, and it features The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin, which is a really beautiful, powerful sci-fi fantasy vibe book about Brooklyn and New York and the idea of cities having souls. It's very beautiful. It's really cool. I'm so excited about book club. So yeah. Right? Doesn't that sound so good?
Yeah. She just won a MacArthur Genius Grant too, or was it last?
I know. It's just she's incredible. So like that made me like extra excited too. I was just like, oh yes. Like this was a good choice for this month. So thank you all again so much for being here. Thank you again, Rachel, for being here. I'm excited for us to keep this wonderful friendship going into the future. All right, everyone. Have a lovely night. Happy reading. Bye.